What's up guys, Jeff from Sorta Healthy here. Today we're talking about a bunch of different things that the average personal trainer couldn't be more clueless about. We're going to be talking about insurance and lawsuits. These are scary subjects and many of us would rather bury our heads in the sand than discuss these things, but discuss them we must. One of the main questions in your head right now probably is, do personal trainers even need to have insurance? The answer to that is no, you don't legally have to be insured. That being said, many of you would be real dummies if you're training clients and you're not covered. The real questions you should be asking yourself are, am I adequately protected for offering the type of training I currently offer? And what type of services do I plan on offering in the future? And what coverage will I need for those? Of course, we'll go over that and quite a bit more as well. I also have 3 stories about trainers getting sued that I'll talk about in this video, so stay tuned for that. You don't want to be on the receiving end of any lawsuits unprotected. They're rare, but they do happen in the training world. Anyways, if you appreciate free trainer education content, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel if you haven't done so already. That support really helps us out and allows us to keep making free content for all of you. Thank you so much for that support, everyone. On to the video. Before I share my thoughts, recommendations, and stories with all of you today, please answer these questions in the comments below. 1, are you currently insured as a personal trainer? And 2, have you ever heard of any trainers getting into legal trouble? Hopefully we get a few interesting responses where you yourself haven't gotten into any trouble. Okay, on to business. Let's first address who should purchase insurance and who shouldn't. Ultimately, all trainers should be insured, but you might not need to purchase the policy yourself. You'll definitely want general liability insurance, which covers things like your client tripping over a dumbbell, getting hurt, breaking their arm, and then suing you. You also want professional liability insurance. Let's say you're teaching a group class and a client tears their hamstring doing a lunge and claims that you made the workout too hard and that's why they got hurt. Yeah, in situations like that, that's where professional liability insurance comes in for the rescue. You want at least $1 million coverage in both of these areas. Some people actually recommend $2 million in coverage for both. I tend to think $1 million is probably enough if you're training clients in responsible, safe, and professional ways, which, hey, if you're here watching this video, I'd say your head's in the right place already. By the way, if it wasn't clear, $1 million in coverage is what it sounds like. If someone gets hurt or has an issue when you're training them, the insurance company will cover up to $1 million in medical fees. Now, if you work for a big gym like LA Fitness, Equinox, Crunch, really any of the big ones, you might already have coverage and not even know about it. Honestly, even smaller locations will often have policies to cover their workers as well. So if you're employed anywhere, before you buy anything, I want you to ask your boss, hey boss, do I have professional and general liability insurance through whatever your gym employer is, or do I have to buy my own? So if your boss says you're good, you're covered through the company, then I wouldn't necessarily bother buying any extra coverage. However, if they don't have you covered or you're self-employed, what do you do? Well, I've compared a bunch of different options and the best deal from a reputable company in the fitness insurance space seems to be from Next. I've actually been insured through Next for about 8-ish years now. I've looked at other options a few times, but Next always seems to have the best rates, at least from a bigger, more established company. Again, I'm personally looking for at least $1 million coverage in general and professional liability, and of course I'm looking for a company with a proven track record, which yeah, you should be looking for those same things as well. So now we're going to go through getting you a quote on insurance step by step, that way you can be covered when you're training clients. Okay, so we're on the Next Insurance website, and we're going to go over here to get instant quote. By the way guys, another good thing about coverage with Next is that your general liability insurance, that's also going to include professional liability insurance, so you're going to have all the coverage that you need. Now my business is in the state of Connecticut. Obviously, if you're in a different state, enter in your proper state there. And then we're not in any of these. We are in other industries. Okay, so what do? Well, we are personal trainers. So, personal trainer, bada bing, bada boom. Do you employ other instructors or operate a gym or fitness studio? I'm gonna say no because most of you watching don't do that. And then it's gonna ask you to type in your email. Okay, so now we're just gonna answer some basic questions. So even though my actual business does have multiple employees, I'm not going to check this one off because I want this to be a realistic quote for all of you watching. Uses tools and equipment to operate. I'm going to actually say no for this one. To clarify further, selecting this would likely just provide some coverage to your fitness equipment if something like your dumbbells were stolen or damaged. It shouldn't change the coverage you would get if a client were to get injured, and in my opinion, that's what you should care about. Fitness equipment isn't too expensive, but hospital bills are. Long story short, some of you should consider checking this, but for most, it probably won't be worth it. Rents or owns an office or business location. I'm actually going to check this one off because I think a lot of you watching, if you work for yourself, yourself, you would be renting out space somewhere. Uses vehicles for business purposes. Yeah, we don't need to check that one off. We should not be driving clients around places, so we're good to go here. Okay, so now we're just filling out some basic information. Do you have a name for your business? Yes. My business is Jeff's Training, because hey, why not? I'm kind of just picking a random location here. Obviously, if you are going to be training clients in a rental spot, this is where you would put that information in. What best describes your business's ownership structure? I'm gonna say individual or sole proprietorship because that's what most of you will be. When did you start your business? Let's say I've been operating for a handful of years, so we'll say since 2020. Does your business employ any workers outside of Connecticut? No. Okay, so number of owners, 1. Number of employees, 0, because we're not including owners. Do you or any of your employees have a certification in nutrition and dietary supplements? Sure, we'll say yes to that. I technically do. Do you want additional coverage for this? No, because we're not going to be doing anything stupid, so select no there. Are you certified through NASM, NESTA, WITS, or any other accredited training program? Yes, and you watching should be as well. Do you, your employees, or your participants do any non-fitness dance or performances? That is definitely a no. Do you or your employer require all of your clients to sign a waiver? Absolutely yes, and that should be a yes for you guys as well. Has your commercial insurance coverage been canceled, revoked, or non-renewed in the last 3 years? That's going to be a no. Has your business or any of its officers, owners, or partners been convicted of a felony in the past 5 years? No. Declared bankruptcy? No. Had business-related lawsuits? No. Had any claims? Yeah, we're going to go no for this one right here. Have there been any insurance claims filed by or against your business in the past 3 years? No. The following activities will be excluded from your policy. Please confirm that you acknowledge that you will not be covered for any of the following: all kinds of crazy acrobatics and yoga, cheerleading, massage therapy, fitness classes involving infants or animals. Yeah, we're good. We don't need to do any of those things. When would you like your coverage to start? I don't know, let's say we need to start it up in 2 weeks. Would you like to include umbrella/excess liability coverage? No, honestly, guys, we're probably not going to need that, so we're just going to continue here. So workers' compensation, we don't need this. We're working for ourselves. We don't have employees, at least not yet, so we do not need this coverage. So in this instance, we're not going to need property coverage either because we're just renting space. We don't own the space, so therefore, we do not need this coverage. We get $15.34 a month, which is a little more than it quoted me last time, and that's probably due to the different location I chose this time around. By the way, there are ways to get this monthly payment down a little bit. If you reach out to Next after they send you a quote, you can make it so you get less coverage, which would cost you a little bit less. But at $15.34 a month or $184 a year, that's a very good price for $4 million of coverage. Also keep in mind, if you work for yourself, this is a good tax write-off. You'll definitely be needing some of those. So now that we've talked about coverage, who should purchase a policy, who shouldn't, and what type of policy you should get, let's talk about a few different lawsuits that I've actually heard of or seen firsthand that involved personal trainers. The first lawsuit that I was close to involved a trainer that I worked with at a private facility for about 2 years. Just to give you guys some context, this trainer had a 4-year degree in exercise science and was in the process of applying to and moving on to med school. This trainer was very intelligent and really good at the job. I never saw any weaknesses in his game. He was certainly just as good as I was. He just happened to get the wrong client at the wrong time. Essentially, the studio where we both worked signed on a client who had a bunch of different injuries. Knee problems, shoulder problems, back problems, you name it, she had it. But despite that, she was in a pretty good spot and excited to begin training. Also, many of those injuries were older, and of course, strength training can help. Anyways, she primarily ended up working with this other trainer, and at first, things seemed to go really well. It was probably about 4-ish months into working together that out of the blue, this client started complaining about old injuries flaring up, and not just a little bit, we're talking a lot. She was claiming that this trainer was causing her injuries to get worse. Now, do I believe that this trainer was actually worsening this client's injuries? No, I'm reasonably sure that wasn't the case. I saw the workouts that he was doing with her, and I saw how she was acting before and after sessions. Now, is it possible that he didn't do anything wrong and the client ended up hurt anyways? Yeah, unfortunately, that's always a possibility. I hate to say it, but it's also possible that this client said, screw it, I want to make some money, let's sue this guy and see what happens. I have no way of knowing what was actually going on with this particular client, but I can tell you that this whole situation ended up in a settlement, and the trainer and the business itself were essentially saved by insurance. insurance in this instance. There was another situation that I wasn't as close to, but I heard about from a different trainer who I really trust. Essentially, a trainer was working at a gym close to the one that I used to work at, and they were spotting a client doing a dumbbell bench press. After the client had completed their set, the trainer went to grab the dumbbells from the client, but they missed the handoff, which resulted in a dumbbell to the face of the client. A dumbbell to the face? That's not exactly ideal. Again, I wasn't as close to this lawsuit. This one's really just more of a rumor coming from a trusted source, but since I heard that story, I don't let clients hand me or my staff dumbbells over their face, and neither should you. Have them drop those things off to the sides. Anyways, from what I heard, this trainer did get fired. This one happened in a bigger gym, and the trainer and the gym itself both had coverage, and I'm pretty sure this one ended up in a settlement as well. The trainer lost their job, which sucks, but I don't think they got into any additional trouble beyond that. Now, if you Google personal trainer lawsuits, you can find a bunch of other scenarios that aren't totally dissimilar to the two that we just talked about. People get hurt in stupid ways, and sometimes it's the trainer's fault, and other times it isn't. The only other lawsuit involving trainers that I know happened close to me actually had nothing to do with liability, but hey, may as well chat about that one too, because I can't think of another video where I'd get to share this story. Anyways, a studio close to mine, which shall remain nameless and doesn't exist any longer, was known as a decent place to work out if you were a client, but a bad place to work if you were a trainer. They really struggled with trainer turnover, and I can only guess that's from not paying their trainers very well. Anyways, in the final days of this studio, a bunch of trainers left the facility, and I think they may have tried to take some clients with them. Considering the business was basically wrapping up at that point, I can't really blame the trainers for doing this. Also, if they weren't treated well leading up to where the business was starting to struggle, well, yeah, all of this would make sense. So the owner of that studio sued these trainers who were leaving and likely taking clients, and I don't know all the details, but I'm reasonably certain it had something to do with them violating non-compete agreements that they had signed. There's one big issue with all of that though. Non-compete agreements are basically bullshit. Also, I don't think that any of these trainers went and tried to open up physical locations close to where this business was. From what I've been told, they were just trying to move on, get new jobs, and make a living doing what they knew, which was, of course, training. You opening a physical personal training location close to the one where you signed the non-compete and taking clients is the only way in which I can see a non-compete possibly holding up, but even then, there's a good chance it still wouldn't. So anyways, all these trainers banded together and won the legal battle against the facility owner. I ended up hearing about this later on because the clients who were working out at the facility, some of them ended up at other facilities close by, which of course my studio was one of those. Long story short, non-competes don't usually hold up, but also if you're gonna leave a business, try to be as respectful as possible, even if your employer is not. Either way, lawsuits do happen in the personal training world, so make sure you're acting professionally and make sure you're covered. If you use our link for next down below, the channel does receive a small commission, but that has nothing to do with me recommending them. I've used them for many years before this video, and I simply think they're the best deal. Anyways, that's all we have for today, everyone. If you haven't done so already, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel, as both of those things do help this channel to grow, and that allows me to create more free content for all of you. Thanks for watching, everyone, and until next time, stay sorta healthy.